Hare Krishna, devotees, welcome to day 25 of our Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto. And we are in chapter 9, which is titled Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. And we are in the first section. First section is from verse 1 to verse 25, and that's the actual prayers of Brahma himself. And we're continuing on from verse 13. Okay, so here we go. But first of all, our prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presta Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyachadeshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha, Paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Right, so here we go. Verse 13, and it's Lord Brahma speaking his prayers. But the pious activities of the people, such as performance of Vedic rituals, charity, austere penances, and transcendental service, performed with a view to worship you and satisfy you by offering you the fruit of results, are also beneficial. Such acts of religion never go in vain. Interesting. Okay, let's have a look at the purport here. So Prabhupada makes the point, first of all, that absolute devotional service, basically pure devotional service, is of 9 types. There are nine types of activities: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, praying, etc. The classic 9, which is spoken by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto. So, but these pure forms of devotional service just for the pleasure of the Lord, they don't always appeal to pompous people. Pompous people includes or means materialistic people. They're more attracted to Vedic rituals, materialistic Vedic rituals, and other costly shows of religion. But Prabhupada makes the point that the process according to the Vedic injunctions is that whatever fruits come from those pious activities, Vedic rituals and other, what Prabhupada calls shows of religion, that all the fruits of these things should be offered to the Lord. And Prabhupada refers to Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 verse 27 in this regard, that whatever you do, whatever you eat, offer, give away in charity, just whatever you do should be done as an offering to me. Yes. And this is beneficial because Prabhupada makes the point, anything done for the Lord has permanent results, and it accumulates. It's never lost. There's no loss or diminution. as Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 40 says, it has permanent value, whereas enjoying the results yourself has only temporary value. You can just get a little enjoyment, and then once you've enjoyed the enjoyment, it's gone. That's it. Never to return. You have to do some more pious activity to accrue some more enjoyable things. Otherwise, that's it. Done. Gone. Right. So but if these people do these types of pious activities, which are offered to the Lord, but they don't just try to enjoy the fruits, the temporary results. They accumulate, and Prabhupada says, in due course, they'll result in full-fledged devotional service by the Lord's mercy. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, therefore any pious act done on account of the Supreme Lord is also recommended here for those who are not pure devotees. Verse 14. Let me offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Transcendence, who is eternally distinguished by his internal potency. His indistinguishable impersonal feature is realized by intelligence for self-realization. I offer my obeisances unto him, who by his pastimes enjoys the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. Right, so Srila Prabhupada points out at the beginning of the purport that the Lord is eternally distinguished from the living entities by his internal potency. Although he is understood impersonally by, Prabhupada says, self-realized intelligence, means even the devotees, they can understand his impersonal feature, of course. Yeah. And therefore the devotees, Prabhupada says, they offer obeisances to the impersonal feature. Of course, it's an aspect of the Lord. Why would they not do that? But the thing is, they don't partake of that like the actual impersonalists. In other words, the devotees generally don't offer obeisances to the impersonalists, because the devotees understand that the impersonalists are misled and they're in ignorance. But the impersonal feature, they offer their obeisances because it's part of the Lord, and anything to do with the Lord is worshipable. So then Srila Prabhupada goes on to refer to the word rasa, which appears in the verse, in the last line, the first word of the last line. And Prabhupada goes into the subject here, that the word rasa is significant, and Krishna performed the rasa dance with the gopis. And even Garbhadakshay Vishnu himself is also engaged in rasa enjoyment with his external potency, by which he creates, maintains, and dissolves the material manifestation. But really, Prabhupada makes the point that indirectly Lord Brahma is offering obeisances to Krishna, who enjoys rasa with the gopis. Yes. as confirmed. Prabhupada refers here and quotes from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad. So anyway, the distinction between the Lord and the living entity is clearly experienced when there's sufficient intelligence to understand the internal potency, as distinct from the external potency. Yes, then the distinction between the Lord and the living entity is understood. On to verse 15. Let me take shelter of the lotus feet of him whose incarnations, qualities, and activities are mysterious imitations of worldly affairs. One who invokes his transcendental names, even unconsciously at the time he quits this life, is certainly washed immediately of the sins of many, many births and attains him without fail. Right, so Prabhupada makes a point which is made from time to time, but he's turned it around. Generally, we hear that the living entities in the material world are imitating the activities in the spiritual world. The spiritual world is the original, and the material world is like the copy, or an attempt at a copy. But here Prabhupada turns it around the other way, that the activities of the incarnations are a kind of imitation of activities in the material world. I mean, you can put it either way. There are things to be learnt, lessons to be learnt from either perspective. But anyway, in this case here, the point Prabhupada makes is that the Lord is like an actor on a stage in a movie. The actor imitates the king, although he's not the king at all. So similarly, when the Lord comes, he imitates parts which he has nothing to do with. Yes, and Prabhupada refers to Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, verse 14, where it is said that the Lord has nothing to do with the activities he is supposedly engaged in. And the Sanskrit there is quoted, Namam karamani limpanti, name karma pale spriha. Right. So, in other words, he's omnipotent. Just by his will alone, he can do anything and everything, just by willing. Not that he has to get up and do it, and because he's so powerful, he can just do anything when he gets up to do it, but he can do anything and everything just by his will alone. Yeah. So, Prabhupada gives the example of how Krishna played the part of Nanda and Yashoda in Vrindavan, and he lifted Govardhan Hill. Lifting Govardhan Hill is not something he would really want to do. Why would he want to lift Govardhan Hill? Prabhupada makes the point, he can lift millions of Govardhan Hills by his simple desire. He doesn't need to actually get in there and lift it. But he imitates the ordinary living entity by doing this lifting, which the living entities, I mean, they're welcome to try lifting Govardhan Hill. But he does it just to show his power. Therefore he's celebrated as Govardhanadari, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. Therefore Prabhupada makes the point that his acts in his incarnations and his partiality to his devotees, they're just imitations. Just like the stage makeup of the expert actor, Srila Prabhupada says, the way he's dressed up and some makeup and whatever to resemble whoever the part or the person he's playing the part of. So, yeah. But still, the fact is that when he acts in those capacities, like lifting Govardhan Hill, he is omnipotent. So, but his acts in his incarnations and his partiality to his devotees, they're all just imitations. But his acts are all omnipotent, and remembering them, if we just remember them, Prabhupada says, that remembrance is as powerful as the Lord is. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Ajamil remembered the holy name of the Lord, Narayan, by merely calling the name of his son, Narayan. And that gave him a complete opportunity to achieve the highest perfection of life. He wasn't intending calling the Lord, like, I want to call the Lord, let me chant the holy names. He was calling for his son. But just by doing that, he got the complete opportunity to achieve the highest perfection of life, and he did. Verse 16, your lordship is the prime root of the tree of the planetary systems. This tree has grown by first penetrating the material nature in three trunks, as me, Shiva, and you, the Almighty, for creation, maintenance, and dissolution. And we three have grown with many branches. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you, the tree of the cosmic manifestation. All right. Yes, there's a fairly substantial purport here. Prabhupada begins by saying that this material world, cosmic manifestation, is divided into three worlds, upper, lower, and middle planetary systems. Then it broadens further, subdivisions are there, into 14, with the Lord as the supreme root. And of course, for the materialists, just the material nature appears to be the cause of the cosmic manifestation. But actually it's just an agency or energy of the Lord. And Prabhupada confirms this by quoting Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 verse 10. And I've mentioned in the previous days on a few occasions that Prabhupada quotes this verse, Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 verse 10, frequently. He really does. Maya jakshena prakriti. So now he gives a translation. I'll just read the version of the translation, you could say, which he gives here. Only under the superintendence of the Supreme Lord does material nature appear to be the cause of all creation, maintenance, and dissolution by the arrangement of the Lord. So, right, he himself then expands into three, the guna avatars, Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, for maintenance, creation, and distraction, respectively. But of those three, Vishnu is the Almighty. Even though he's acting within the material world, Prabhupada says, for the purpose of maintenance, but he is above Brahma and Shiva, because he's, among other things, he's not controlled by the laws of material nature, whereas Brahma and Shiva, Prabhupada makes the point, they are within the control of material energy, even to the point that in due course they're both going to die. So therefore, Prabhupada makes an important point. The idea, the conception that there are many gods and there's no supreme, just many gods, is ill-conceived by the foolish pantheist. So, but otherwise, God is one without a second, and he's the primal cause of all causes. But as there are many departmental heads in the government, so there are also different departmental heads in the universe. But the Supreme Lord is above them all. That the people don't get. So on to the second paragraph. So the impersonalists, they have a poor fund of knowledge. It's a shame. Therefore, they don't believe in, generally, they don't believe in the personal management of things as they are. But here, despite what the impersonalists say or think, in this verse it's clearly explained that everything is personal. Nothing is impersonal. What do you think of that, devotees? That's really powerful. Yes. So then Prabhupada goes on to discuss a point, important point, from the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the reflection of the tree in a lake. In Vaikuntha, in the spiritual world, the real tree exists. Yes. The tree of this material creation, Prabhupada says, is just a shadow of the reality, which is the Parabrahman Vishnu. So anyway, we have, Prabhupada says, as he does in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, just as in the 15th chapter, there's a description of this banyan tree, Ashvata tree, whose root is upward and branches downward. And Prabhupada says we have experience of such a tree. It's the reflection of a tree. When we see the shadow or just the reflection of a tree, which is standing on the bank of a reservoir of water, we see the reflection or the shadow, the reflection really, in the water. And it's upside down, of course. Yes. So anyway, in the Vaikuntha Lokas, the actual tree exists. Yeah. And Lord Vishnu is the root of it. And he's the root of both the real and the false trees. So, but of course the impersonalist, the poor old impersonalists who they're really confused and mixed up and really making a big mess of things. They have this theory that Brahman, the spiritual reality, has no variegatedness. All the variegatedness we see in this world, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. This is what they say, that this world is false. But this world, according to this example from the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, this world is the reflected tree, reflected on the water of the lake. But the fact that in the reflection there's all the various components of the tree, the branches, the leaves, the fruit, the flowers, etc., that indicates obviously that in the real tree, which is standing there on the bank of the lake, it also has all those features, Otherwise, how could the reflection or even just the shadow contain all those types of things? Yeah, so that real tree is there in the spiritual world eternally. And Lord Vishnu is the root of that also, just as he's the root of the reflected tree. He's the root of both. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the Lord, being the real tree, is here offered obeisances by Brahma on his own behalf, and also on behalf of Lord Shiva. Right, so on we go to verse 17. People in general all engage in foolish acts, not in the really beneficial activities enunciated directly by you for their guidance. By you means Garbhodakshai Vishnu, because Lord Brahma is offering his prayers to Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So anyway, as long as their tendency for foolish work remains powerful, all their plans in the struggle for existence will be cut to pieces. I therefore offer my obeisances unto him who acts as eternal time. Right. So in the purport, Prabhupada begins by pointing out that ordinary people in general, they're all engaged in senseless work. What a waste. They're unmindful of the, Prabhupada says, systematically unmindful. That means they're really unmindful of real beneficial work, which is devotional service, or, in this context, the Archana regulations. Yeah. Those regulations are instructed by the Lord in Narada Pancharatra, and they're strictly followed by intelligent people who know that the highest perfectional goal of life is to reach Lord Vishnu, who is the root of the tree of existence. Yes. The tree of the cosmic manifestation. So in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, these regulated activities recommended in Narada Pancharatra, activities of Archana, they're clearly mentioned. They're clearly mentioned. And Srila Prabhupada quotes Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, Chapter 5, verses 30 to 32. Let's just, oh, Krishna. These 3 verses, I'll read them. They're just chastising the conditioned souls, my Lord. So here we go. Persons who are determined to totally rot in false material happiness. So heavy, but so true. So those people cannot become Krishna-minded, either by instructions from teachers, by self-realization, or by parliamentary discussions. They're dragged by the unbridled senses into the darkest region of ignorance, and thus they madly engage in what is called chewing the chewed. Because of their foolish activities, they're unaware that the ultimate goal of human life is to achieve Vishnu, the Lord of the cosmic manifestation. And so their struggle for existence is in the wrong direction of material civilization, which is under the external energy. They're struggling for existence. Even for the devotees, it's a struggle sometimes, but at least they're going in the right direction. Back home, back to Godhead, getting free from material attachments, cultivating knowledge of the Lord, serving the Lord. But the non-devotees, their struggle for existence is in the wrong direction. This Bhagavatam verse says, in the wrong direction of material civilization, which is under Maya. So these foolish people then, they're led by similar foolish people, just as one blind man is led by another blind man, and both fall in the ditch. And the last of these verses quoted, 7:5-32, such foolish men cannot be attracted towards the activities of the Supreme Powerful, who is actually the neutralizing measure for their foolish activities. So they can't be attracted to the activities of the Lord unless and until they have the good sense to be guided by the great souls who are completely freed from material attachment. Okay? Right, so there's a second paragraph here. Let's have a look. So in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asks everyone to give up all their occupational duties, sarva dharmam parityaja, mamekam sharanam vraja, and Prabhupada says to absolutely engage in archana activities. You know, of course, this word archana, generally speaking, it's applied in terms of deity worship as such. But, like so many Sanskrit words, it can be used in a broader context also. So therefore, Prabhupada says they're advised to absolutely engage in archana activities, these foolish people. They should engage in archana activities or activities for pleasing the Lord. But the problem is, of course, almost no one is interested in doing that. They rather they are attracted. They're very interested in activities of rebellion against him. Including, Prabhupada mentions, jnana and yoga. You know, it might appear, at least to some people it does appear, that jnana means impersonal knowledge of the impersonal aspect of the Lord. And yoga, which generally means, in this, at least in this context, of Ashtanga yoga for realizing the super soul and acquiring mystical powers. But they're also indirectly rebellious activities against the Lord. So Prabhupada makes the point, such an important point, that nothing is auspicious. There's no auspicious activity except archana of the Lord. And when jnana and yoga are sometimes done ultimately for Vishnu, which is not so often, but sometimes, then they can be considered within the purview of archana, in the very broad sense, as we said. Activities for pleasing the Lord, not just actual deity worship as such, but not otherwise. Yeah. Only if the ultimate goal, ultimate aim is Vishnu, otherwise not. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the conclusion is that only the devotees of the Lord are bona fide human beings, eligible for salvation. Others are vainly struggling for existence without any actual benefit. So, right devotees, on we go. to verse 18. Verse 18. So Lord Brahma says, Your Lordship, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are indefatigable time and the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Although I am situated in an abode which will continue to exist for a time duration of 2 paradas, although I am the leader of all other planets in the universe, and although I've undergone many, many years of penance for self-realization, still I offer my respects unto you. Right, so there's a very short purport here. Prabhupada makes the point that Brahma is the greatest person, is the greatest person in the universe, because he has the longest duration of life. Yes, 311 trillion, 40 billion years, give or take, a few years, a few billion or million or something. And he's the most respectable because of his penance, what he did, his penance for the Lord, his influence, his prestige. But still, even though he's so respectable, still he has to offer obeisances to the Lord. And so Prabhupada concludes, therefore all those who are less than Brahma, that's us, by the way, devotees, who are less. Prabhupada says, far, far below the standard of Brahma. We must also offer obeisances to the Lord, as he did, as a matter of duty. Okay, so on to verse 19. O my Lord, by your own will you appear in the various species of living entities, among animals lower than human beings, as well as among the demigods, to perform your transcendental pastimes. You are not affected by material contamination. You come just to fulfill the obligations of your own principles of religion, and therefore, O Supreme Personality, I offer my obeisances unto you for manifesting such different forms. Right. So Prabhupada's first point, very well-known point, the Lord's incarnations are all transcendental, comes in all sorts of forms, human, like Lord Ram, like Lord Krishna, or not human, like Kurma Varaha, shortly coming up, what is it now? It's in a month tomorrow. Yes, 4th of May, Lord Nrsingadev. Yes. Well, it's half lion, half man, half lion. Anyway, when he appears in a human form, anyone who mistakes him for an ordinary human being is not intelligent. As Bhagavad Gita 9:11 states, Avajananti mam mudha, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. So the same principle applies when he appears as Varaha, as Matsya. They're transcendental forms, manifested, Prabhupada says, under certain necessities of his own pleasure and pastimes. Like, just as an example, Varaha. He's in the form of a hog, a pig. Because the earth planet had fallen down into the bottom of the universe, or the bottom half, which is filled with water, and also the perspiration of Garbhodakshai Vishnu, so that water there, the Garbhodak ocean, is considered very dirty. Therefore, the Lord took the form of a hog, and hogs, of course, are well known for being at home in extremely dirty situations. But he just assumed that form, not because I have to go to this dirty place, so I've got to take a dirty form. No, he was completely glorious, and that form of a hog is completely glorious. And Prabhupada makes the point that he mainly accepts those forms to enliven the devotees. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, all his incarnations are manifested whenever there's a need to deliver his devotees and maintain his own principles. Verse 20, my Lord, you accept the pleasure of sleeping in the water of devastation where there are violent waves, and you enjoy pleasure on the bed of snakes, showing the happiness of your sleep to intelligent persons. At that time, all the universal planets are stationed within your abdomen. Okay. So, let's have a look here. Remember the frog in the well? How could we forget the frog in the well? Is such a good example, such a clear example. And Prabhupada uses it quite regularly, fairly often. So, that frog's in the well, that's all he knows, and he thinks it's big. But his friend, the other frog number 2, went out of the well and saw the Pacific Ocean and came back and said, the ocean is so much bigger than your well. And Dr. Frog in the well inflated his chest. Well, no, first of all he said, is it as big as the water, as my well? And frog number 2 said, yes, it's much bigger. And Dr. Frog puffed up his chest. Is it this big? No, much bigger. Puffed up further. Is it this big? Much bigger. Puffed up again and exploded. That's the frog in the well, in case you've forgotten. So some of these frogs, Prabhupada makes the point, think it is a legend that the Lord lies on his bed in ocean to sleep. But Prabhupada says, just a little intelligence can mitigate this foolish astonishment. Astonishment that someone can lie down on water and sleep. They're astonished at that. But Prabhupada says, just a little intelligence and you can get free from that astonishment, because Prabhupada makes the point, there are many living entities who live in the ocean and they eat there and they sleep. They're not awake 24 hours a day down at the bottom of the ocean. They're not. Like we see our fish here. Now we're in Radharadhanath Temple, Chatsworth, Durban, and we've got the moat, which has so many fish. It's just, there's loads of them. And when we go there, early in the morning, I went this morning 4 o'clock. I went over to the temple room, 4 o'clock, and the fish were asleep. They were just totally, all of them, just totally immobile, just lying there. But you go now in the sort of, during the day, and you'll see the fish are going here and there and this and that. So they sleep in the water. So Prabhupada makes the point, why can't the Supreme Lord, who's all-powerful, sleep on the cool body of a serpent and enjoy in the turmoil of violent ocean waves? Why not? Who can say he can't? But then there's a distinction too. The fish are doing their activities in the water. The Lord is doing his activities. And you might think, well, they're the same. But there's a distinction, is that the activities of the Lord are all transcendental. And he can do them without being limited by time and space. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, he can enjoy his transcendental happiness regardless of material considerations. Verse 21. So Lord Brahma says, O object of my worship, I am born from the house of your lotus navel for the purpose of creating the universe by your mercy. All these planets of the universe were stationed within your transcendental abdomen while you were enjoying sleep. Now, your sleep having ended, your eyes are open like blossoming lotuses in the morning. That's very nice. Very nice description. So first paragraph, Lord Brahma is teaching us that the beginning of Archana regulations is from 4 in the morning until 10 at night. So early in the morning we have to get up, pray to the Lord, offer Mangal Arati and various other things. I'm normally here, at least here in Chatsworth, I will get up at 3:20, 21 minutes past 3 even, and get prepared in the usual way, and then go over to chant by 4 o'clock. Yeah. So that's Archana. Yes, so the devotees do like this. But the foolish non-devotees don't understand this. They criticize these rules, but still they can't. They have no eyes to see that the Lord also sleeps by his will. And Prabhupada makes, what an important point at the end of this first paragraph. The impersonal conception of the Supreme is so detrimental to the path of devotional service that it is very difficult to associate with the stubborn non-devotees. Second paragraph. So Prabhupada makes a good point. The impersonalists always think backwards. They think that because there's form in matter, spirit has no form, formless. Because there's sleep in matter, in spirit, there cannot be sleep. But the thing is, the deity sleeps in the process of Archana. Yes. So the impersonalists think then that because in Archana the deity sleeps, on the altar here and in any of our practically any of our temples, and even many devotees who have deities at home, they have beds for the deities. And at least if there are small deities, the deities are physically laid down in the beds to sleep. The big deities like here, they're 40-inch, a little more than a meter, and you can't lift them up. I mean, you can if a whole gang of you can lift them up. Then, but no. So the big deities, they're put to sleep by mantra, but the little Utsav deities, which represent the big deities and are non-different, they're usually laid down in beds to sleep. Right, so let's see. Okay, we're in the second paragraph here, and Prabhupada makes the point, it's such an important point. These thoughts are all material. Whether you think positively or negatively, it's still materialistic thinking. So rather we should accept knowledge from the superior source of the Vedas, because it's standard. And here Srimad Bhagavatam represents Archana, so we should do it. So, but anyway, before Brahma started his creating service, he found the Lord sleeping on the serpent, on the waves. So sleeping exists in the internal potency. The devotees don't deny it. Of course, the devotees don't sleep much, but they do sleep. The Lord slept on the waves of devastation. It shows he can do anything. He can do anything by his transcendental will, and he's not hampered by the circumstances. So, but anyway, the poor old Mayavadis, I don't know if we should say that, but yeah, we can. These Mayavadis, it's so sad and stupid. They cannot think beyond the material experience, one way or the other. They can't think beyond the material experience, that sleeping is material, therefore in spiritual life there's no sleeping. Yeah. It means it's just from the material perspective. Nati, not this, not this. Yeah. Comparing the Lord to himself, the Mayavadi. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the whole philosophy of the Mayavad school, based on not this, not that, nati, is basically material. Such thought cannot give one the chance to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead as he is. Right, on to verse 22. Let the Supreme Lord be merciful towards me. He is the one friend and soul of all living entities in the world, and he maintains all for their ultimate happiness by his 6 transcendental opulences. May he be merciful towards me, so that I, as before, may be empowered with the introspection to create. For I'm also one of the surrendered souls who are dear to the Lord. Okay, so the Supreme Lord, Krishna, Purushottama. Purushottama means the Supreme Person. He's the maintainer of all in both the spiritual and material worlds. And as the verse says, he is the life and soul, the life and the friend of everyone, because he's maintaining all living entities by his opulences. The verse refers to his 6 transcendental opulences. So therefore Lord Brahma prayed to him so he could create, because he understood it's only possible by his grace. So Lord Brahma prayed to him because the Lord is always dear to the surrendered soul. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the surrendered soul knows nothing but the Lord, and therefore the Lord is very affectionate towards him. And that includes Lord Brahma. Verse 23, the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, is always the benefactor of the surrendered souls. His activities are always enacted through his internal potency, Rama, or the goddess of fortune. I pray only to engage in his service in the creation of the material world, and I pray that I not be materially affected by my works, for thus I may be able to give up the false prestige of being the creator. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? He's now appealing to the Lord. Help me, please. Do my service, but not to become proud in terms of my service. So Prabhupada says, for the functions of creation, maintenance, and distraction, there are the three deities, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. We know that very well. But amongst them, and we just read that earlier today, Lord Vishnu is supreme. So Lord Brahma, he wants to remain as a servant and not become proud and thinking that he's a big man. He wants to remain thinking that he's a small man under Lord Vishnu, who is the big man, which is true. And Prabhupada makes the point, such a nice, important point. That is the way to become dear to the Lord and get his mercy. Yes. But unfortunately, the fools want to take credit for the things they make. But intelligent people know that not a blade of grass moves without the Lord's will. But it's only by spiritual consciousness that we can become free from material affection, material attachment, material pride, and do nice things, but remain humble at the lotus feet of the Lord, and like this, being free from Maya, get the benedictions, the mercy of the Lord. Okay, so on to verse 24, right? Verse 24. The Lord's potencies are innumerable. As he lies down in the water of devastation, I am born as the total universal energy from the navel lake in which the lotus sprouts. I'm now engaged in manifesting his diverse energies in the form of the cosmic manifestation. I therefore pray that in the course of my material activities, I may not be deviated from the vibration of the Vedic hymns. So, Prabhupada makes the point, first of all, everyone doing devotional service is prone to material activities because we're coming from material life. And if someone is not strong enough spiritually, they can be diverted, and some do. So Lord Brahma has to create, and the danger is there for him. He has to create so many living entities with material tendencies, so he wants to be protected from being sucked into that himself. And Prabhupada makes the point that an ordinary Brahmin may fall down from being a Brahmin due to associating with conditioned souls. So Lord Brahma is the supermost Brahmin, and he's afraid of fall down. That's a warning to us, isn't it? We have to pray constantly for that, for the blessing to continue with our duties without pride. So Lord Chaitanya, he entrusted his preaching work to the devotees and assured them that they would be protected from Maya. But we have to remember, the path of spiritual life is like the razor's edge. Little inattention can cause havoc. But if we're always praying for the Lord's protection, we have no fear of fall down. So let me just quickly go through verse 25. It's the last verse in the section. The Lord, who's supreme and is the oldest of all, is unlimitedly merciful. I wish that he may smilingly bestow his benediction upon me by opening his lotus eyes. He can uplift the entire cosmic creation and remove our dejection by kindly speaking his directions. So, right, Prabhupada begins the purport by saying, the Lord is ever increasingly merciful. He's very merciful, but increasingly merciful upon the fallen souls. And therefore he's created this world for correcting us. Prabhupada talks about there are two types of expansions from the Lord. The separated ones, that's us, and then the self-expansions, the Lord himself personally. And they are the predominated and predominators. The separated ones, that's us, we're predominated, and his personal expansions, his different incarnations, etc., they're the predominators. And what are we for? What's our business? We're there, we exist to reciprocate bliss with Krishna, to serve him, make him blissful, and share the bliss. He lets us share the bliss. Typical example, the rasa dance. It's not mundane, but it's the highest perfectional exchange of love between the Lord and his devotees, the living entities. So he gives us this chance. Maybe even in the rasa dance, if not exactly the rasa dance, but by giving us some service to please him, to make him happy. Then because we're his parts and parcels, when we make him happy, we become happy. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Lord Brahma is entrusted with the management of the complete cosmic show, and therefore he prays that the Lord bestow his blessings upon him so that he may execute its purpose. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.